My bad. I was just catching up on my killer cults. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about why I decided to transition. So remember that the question is not when did you decide to be trans or why did you decide to be trans, because I know you guys watched my 5 things not to ask a trans person video and that was on there. Don't ask it, it's inappropriate. But you can decide to transition. So I think this is more along the lines of when did I realize I was trans and why did I decide to transition? I remember being a little kid and I remember saying to my mom, I was like, I kind of, my brother liked to cook, and so I was like, well, that's kind of feminine, right? Because, you know, as a kid, you have these stereotypical ideas of what it's like to be masculine or feminine. My brother loved to cook, and I really liked to play sports and do what I thought were masculine things. And so I remember saying to my mom, you know, I think my brother and I were like mixed up. Like, he was supposed to be born a girl, and I was supposed to be born a boy. And I remember my mom saying, well, do you feel like a boy? Kind of hesitated for a minute, and that's when I realized, like, yes, I do feel that way. I did feel that way. But I told her no, because I wasn't honest with myself, let alone with anyone else at that time, about how I felt, like as far as my attraction to women or how I felt about my gender. I said, no, I don't feel that way. And I lied about it because I was scared. And I think that that's probably pretty normal. I think a lot of people feel scared to admit who they truly are, who they feel they are. So that's like, I think one of my first memories of really kind of realizing that I didn't feel female. But I also think back to when I was like a really young kid, like in elementary school and stuff, and my favorite outfit to wear was this pair of overalls because they were really baggy. And I liked how like the jean part, like the pants part of them were just like super baggy, and I'd throw on like a baggy hoodie over top, and I always loved that. I just remember feeling like I was afraid to be called a boy because I got made fun of a lot. But I felt so much more comfortable in those clothes. I felt comfortable when my clothes were baggy, and it seemed like I felt more masculine that way, and I liked that, but I was, again, too scared to admit it, or maybe just too young to even realize what it was that I was feeling. And I had kids all the time at that age were like, are you a boy or a girl? I mean, I still get that now. So it was hard for me because I felt like I was supposed to be female. I was born and they were like, you're a girl, you're female, this is what you're supposed to do, this is how you're supposed to behave. You get socialized a certain way. So I realized along the way that I felt more masculine, I felt more male, but it took a really long time for me to kind of accept that, obviously, because I'm only recently just come out and started transitioning. It's so hard, like, figuring yourself out, even if you're not, in the LGBTQ community, it's hard figuring yourself out. I think I've known for a long time, but been too afraid to admit it. When I think back to when I wore, like, I'm gonna say women's clothes, even, and I put that in quotations because clothes are just clothes. If you want to wear women's clothes or men's clothes, it doesn't matter your gender or how you identify. It doesn't matter. They're clothes. You wear whatever you want, whatever makes you feel comfortable. But I'm using this to make it kind of clear to help you understand where I was coming from. But when I would wear women's clothes, I felt like I was cross-dressing. And like, I didn't have the words for it back then. When I think back to it, I didn't know how to explain that. But now when I think back to it, I realize I didn't feel comfortable, and it just felt like I wasn't being me. Like, I was trying so hard to be this person that I wasn't because I needed to fit a certain role. It's not my parents' fault. It's not my classmates' fault. It's not my friends' fault or even church or anything like that. It's just, it's hard to figure out who you are, especially when it kind of varies from the stereotypical norm. When I met my wife, when we were still dating, I remember at one point we were driving and she asked me, I don't remember what we were talking about, but she asked me, do you feel like a boy? And I hesitated again because I'm still scared. I was still scared to like say how I really felt. And finally I said, yeah, but I'm not. I'm a girl. Like that's what I am. This is what I have to be. It's like I just have to accept that. And it was like transitioning didn't seem to be an option for me. I'm not sure why. I think it's just you're not really aware of those choices, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't something I had even really thought about. I told my wife, I said, well, I'd feel more comfortable in men's clothes. So that was scary, going out and buying men's clothes, because I didn't know what people would think. Like I already don't like to feel like people are watching me, which I know is kind of funny because now I'm doing these videos, but it makes me uncomfortable. So I remember being really nervous and really scared. My anxiety was super high, and I ended up buying some men's clothes. And I remember the first time I put on boxer briefs, I felt like I could like run around the house just like screaming out of joy, because it just, like, I put them on and it felt right. It was the first time I felt comfortable in my own skin. Even in the LGBTQ community, it's almost like you have to fit into some sort of box still. Like it's like you feel like you still have to fit somewhere. And I remember saying, like, I don't feel like a butch lesbian, like, again, and I'm thinking stereotypes. Like, it's taken me a long time to grow and realize that a lot of these things are stereotypes, and you know, I shouldn't think that way. But at the time, yeah, I was like, I don't fit. I'm not a butch lesbian. I dress better. Like, okay, that was probably offensive, but like at the time, that's how I felt. Okay, I'm just trying to be honest. So I started wearing men's clothes, and I started feeling more comfortable with myself, which was a really big step for me. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm a lesbian, and I am just a masculine lesbian. So I still didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like I was fitting in the way that I needed to, and things just weren't clicking. It was like I was this awkward puzzle piece that didn't seem to fit into the puzzle anywhere in the right place. I think dressing male, like stereotypically male, like what, you know, I feel like that was a huge turning point for me, and like starting to embrace my masculinity and being okay with it, because I felt like I could be, because I'm like, well, I'm dressing like a guy, people just see me as just like a butch lesbian, I can act masculine, like that's okay, that's, you know, socially acceptable, I guess. But also, like, it wasn't just clothes. Like I never felt like I processed emotions the way that I perceive women to process emotions. I always felt like I was much angrier, and I don't feel like very empathetic in certain aspects. I don't really feel like I have the nurturing motherly type, and I'm not saying that all women do have those things, but I felt like I would process things in a more stereotypical masculine or male way. And like, you know, it makes sense now. It's because my gender identity, I am male. I feel male, I am male, and that makes sense now. But at the time, again, I just felt like I was different, and that was hard. So it was hard, like, acknowledging that. But I think my biggest turning point in deciding to transition, because I had for like a couple of years talked about being ready to transition, or wanting to transition at least, like feeling like I don't know if I was ready for it, but knowing that it's something that interested me, that I felt like I wanted to do but was too scared to do. I think the first video I saw about transitioning was Skylar Curveball. I'm not sure how you say his last name, but he did a video. It was like his year-long transition, and I remember seeing that, and I watched it over and over. Like, I watched it on repeat because I was so amazed by the results. I didn't know that that was possible. I didn't know it was possible to start on testosterone and suddenly look so much like every other guy on the street, and I wanted that so bad. And I remember telling one or maybe two of my friends, and my wife knew, and I was like, you know, I was kind of playing around with some names. I threw out the name Tegan, like I was thinking about that name, and for a while my wife tried to use he, him pronouns at home, and so it was something that we kind of like played around with on and off for a couple of years. And then I remember we were watching The L Word, I think is the show, and there was a guy on there who was trans, and it was kind of like, I hadn't really, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm watching this and it kind of felt like this experience. Like I got so upset, like it was just very hard for me to watch, and I couldn't figure out why. I got really upset. I had to like walk away. I got angry. I just couldn't watch it, and we stopped watching the show for a while. Just after the point where we realized he's trans and he's starting to transition. I think my wife realized, you know, that I was really upset about that, and like I didn't want to talk about it. I was still really upset, but I think it was because I just wasn't ready to accept. I wasn't really ready to accept myself. I think it made me feel like I felt hurt. I felt disappointed in myself. I felt like I just wasn't living my life to its fullest potential, but I was still too scared to take that step to come out to my family and my friends as being trans, and to really admit it to myself. That was a couple of years ago when I watched that, and so it's taken me a long time to accept myself and be comfortable with myself. But my biggest turning point was this past year, when we went to Pride, and we were at Pride, and you know, some people were up there giving speeches, and one of them mentioned that Planned Parenthood was offering options for transitioning, and my wife kind of like elbowed me and looked at me and just smiled. And at that moment I was like, she's really okay with this. She's okay with me transitioning. I was afraid to lose her too. Like, it's a big deal. I didn't know how she would react. She'd been supportive so far, but it's a big deal to transition, and I wasn't sure how she would react to that. When she elbowed me, she like nudged me and she smiled at me. I felt, I think I can do this. I think this is what I want. I'm ready. I think I'm ready for this. And shortly after, we were watching the parade, and we were with some of our friends, and one of my friends yells out, she points and she's like, look, that guy, you can see his chest scars. Look how cool that is. He's got a shirt off and he's so comfortable and you can see his scars. And that's when I realized that I had friends who would support me too. I think that just realizing that I had people to support me when I came out was a huge deal. Like, just knowing that even if I came out and like I lost my family, which is not necessarily something I thought was going to happen, but if that happened, if my family just like didn't want to talk to me, didn't want anything to do with me, my wife would be there for me and my friends were going to support me. And that was, I think that gave me the confidence to go ahead and decide to transition. The biggest things that were holding me back were, I have to say, my family. Not because like it's not anything about them, I didn't know how they would react. I was scared. I was just scared. I didn't want to lose my family. I'm pretty close to them, and it's the fear of the unknown. It was terrifying, but I decided that I had to live my life for me, and I had to find a way for me to be happy. And since I've made this decision and since I've been transitioning, I have been much happier and I've been a different person. Yeah, that's the gist of it. I think the biggest turning point is just realizing that I had people who would support me. And my decision to transition was that I want top surgery, and I want to start taking testosterone to look more masculine, to have more masculine features, and to look more like a cis male. Also, this question was from Dana I think it's Grothus. Correct me if I'm wrong, but thank you for asking the question. I really appreciate it. Thank you to those who've been watching my videos. I really appreciate that. And those who have subscribed to me, thank you so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I'm just trying to get more viewers so that I can have my channel grow and I can kind of educate people on, at least on my experiences. Please like my videos if you like watching any of them. Like, you just click the like button on YouTube. That'd be great. You know, like and subscribe. Those are wonderful things. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great week.